Today I'm going to talk about the tools and supplies needed in millinery to create hats. So first off, rulers are one of the most important tools that you can use when you are sewing or creating patterns. Here I have a clear plastic ruler, and this is a great being able to see through the ruler onto the fabric or onto the paper. And this one is a 2-inch ruler that is made up of 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and 1/8 inch measurements. And it also has holes across the middle, which can be used to create circles with your ruler. I have a French curve here, which is good for creating curved lines on your patterns. I would also recommend an L-shape or T-shape ruler. Here I have a tape measure, which is flexible and used to kind of go around 3-dimensional objects like heads or hat blocks to create measurements. I have a seam gauge. So I have 2 different types. One that is a ruler that has a sliding gauge in the middle, and that is used to set measurements that you want, and it won't move around, and you can use that consistently to mark. And then I have a measuring gauge that has set increments of sizes across the ruler. I also have a compass, which can be used to create circles as well. So if you use a pin on this part of the ruler and on the compass, you can set the measurement that you want and create circles that you need. So that's really helpful in creating hats as well. So other tools that are needed to create hats, we have millinery needles. And I like millinery needles because they are a little longer, and I like the thin ones because they go through the fabric easier. But the longer ones are helpful because you can go in and out of the fabric more times and have that on your needle before you have to put it through the fabric again. Seam rippers are important for fixing any stitches that you've done incorrectly, or you want to adjust what you've done, or to take out any basting stitches that you need. In pattern making, it is really important to have sharp pencils. So sharp pencils, I have a pencil for creating the patterns onto paper. And then I have a chalk pencil that would be used to mark the fabric itself. And you could also, this is optional, I have a water erasable fabric marker, which will, you can mark fabric, but the markings will disappear. And with those pencils, I have a pencil sharpener to help keep it sharp. You're also going to need some sort of pins, and I like quilting pins because they have nice big heads on them and they hold the fabric down really well. Okay, so then moving on to scissors, it's really important to have a pair of fabric scissors, ones that are nice and sharp and that are going to cut the fabric really well. I have also a pair of paper scissors, which are going to be useful to cut your pattern and the buckram. Okay, so you're not going to use them on fabric, and they're just for paper. And then I have a pair of snips, which are a smaller type of scissors used to either cut threads or to cut intricate shapes into your fabric as needed. There's a couple types of thread that you might use. So here's a Gutermann thread. It's a polycotton thread that you can use on the sewing machine, but you can also use it for hand sewing. It's sturdy, so that's why I like it. And then I also like to use this type of wax thread, and it is often called Silamide. And what it is a pre-cut wax thread. So you can grab an end from the bottom and pull, and then you have a pre-cut piece, which makes your sewing go faster because you don't have to take the time to cut it. And it's also a really sturdy thread. Okay, I have here some push pins. Metal push pins, and they are in a magnetic container just to keep them together a little easier. But we're going to need metal push pins to secure them into the wooden hat blocks. And with that, we will need a tack hammer to help hammer the tacks into the wood. And if they were plastic pins, they would break. So some other things we might need are some wire cutters and some pliers. So pliers are good sometimes when we are sewing hats and the material's really thick, Sometimes your needle gets caught, so the pliers might be helpful to take your needle through all the material. And then wire cutters are useful for cutting millinery wire that we will be using to create the base part of our hat. So now I'm going to take a little time to talk about the supplies used to create hats. Hats are often made out of buckram when it's a shaped hat that has a hard base that is not made out of straw or felt. It most likely has a buckram base, and this is buckram. It has fiber that is made out of cotton that is stiffened or starched, and it usually has some sort of a weave that has a warp and a weft to it. This is only 1-ply buckram. I also have 2-ply buckram, which has 2 layers, a thinner layer and a thicker layer of buckram. And they also have that kind of woven fiber that you can see through it. And it is also stiffened, and this is used for a little more sturdier hats with buckram. We often use millinery wire to strengthen a buckram hat. Millinery wire comes in both white and black. And the wire is often wrapped with some sort of fiber. This one's wrapped with cotton, but sometimes it can be wrapped with a nylon or silk thread. And this wire is sturdy and flexible, which helps to create strength for the hat, and it can also be bent to create different shapes and structures. I also have a Buckram binding that can be used around the edge of a brim, where you might have the wires stitched to the buckram. This Buckram binding will help create a smooth edge around the wire, making it invisible when finished. It helps to create a softer surface on the outside. Another material that you will need to create a hat is flannel. The flannel will go between the buckram and the outside of the hat. This will help to create a smoother surface on the outside, and it will eliminate any bumps where maybe the buckram and the wire might be. You'll also need lining material for the inside of the hat, and this is an acetate lining that's lightweight and thin and won't create much bulk on the inside of the hat once all the layers are sewn together. So those are the materials that make up a hat. We also have things like a straw braid. So if you were to make a straw hat, you can do that with a braid, where you layer the braids and you can stitch them together to create the structure. And here's a much larger straw braid hat. So you can see how the structure around is created by layering the braid. You can also have a straw hat by having the straw woven to create the structure of the hat. And this is a straw cartwheel. So a cartwheel is just the base of a hat shape that has a brim, like extended material to create a brim. A hood, which is another type of a hat base, is usually made without this extra brim material. I also have a felt cartwheel. This felt cartwheel is made out of wool, and the wool is pressed together to create a thick felt. And these can be heated up with steam and stretched over a wooden hat block to create the shape that you want. So now I have some hat blocks. So they are all made out of wood, and they can be all kinds of different shapes and sizes. This one is a small cocktail hat or some sort of fascinator. You can have a hat block that have both the crown and the brim. On this one, this is the crown and this is the brim. And you can also find blocks that are just the brim, and you can combine them with another crown of a hat. And then sometimes I use these wig blocks to create a cloche type hat that is fitted to the head. So you don't have to use a specific hat shape, you might just need to use the shape of the head to create the hat. And that's why you might use one of these. There are some other materials that are used in making hats. This is a veiling material. It's kind of a plastic material, and it's really for decoration, but they come in many colors and sizes, and this is an example of veiling. And something else that might be useful is some sort of a weight. So this is just a sock with some plastic beads inside. And when we're heating a felt cartwheel and stretching it over a hat block, sometimes you need some weight or pressure to make sure that the wool or the straw, it really fits into the shape of the hat and sets the shape. A lot of times you might use like a weight to push the shape into the hat, and also you can leave the weight on there as the material cools down. It will help to hold its shape and press the hat shape into the material. So that's pretty much the basics for hat materials.